Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Amren Gaur Das here, your course facilitator, Gita Made Easy. Today we are on chapter 11. And the chapter is entitled Vishwarupa Darshan Yoga, or the universal form of the Lord. So the form in which Krishna pervades the entire universe. So that is the form, because in the previous chapter, Krishna says that this entire universe is pervaded by me just from a fragment of my powers. So Arjun wanted to see how is that, how does that happen? So that was the desire of Arjun, and that is why Krishna did that. Krishna fulfilled Arjuna's desire, and we will also see the Vishwarup, or the universal form of the Lord. And before we continue, let us all offer our respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatam aham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So before we continue, let's look at chapter 10, what we saw in the previous session. So amazingly, Krishna explained that how he is the source of everything in the first 7 verses, how we can know Krishna, how is the source of all. He is known and yet he is unknown. And then the beautiful part of chapter 10 was the essence of Bhagavad Gita, just the 4 verses 8, 9, 10 and 11. The essence of entire Bhagavad Gita, the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita, which contains the essence of all these 700 verses. And we saw that how that is divided into 3 parts: the Sambandha, knowledge, or the awareness that what is my relationship with the Supreme Lord, the nature, my relationship with the Supreme Lord. So that is part of the Sambandha Gyan. And what is the goal of my life? The Prayojan is love of the Supreme, love of Krishna. And how do we do that? The process is called Abhideya, how to achieve the Supreme Lord. So that was in the second section. The third section, Arjuna really became very excited and devotionally surcharged, and he accepted that yes, Krishna, you are the Supreme Lord. So Krishna's acceptance was there. Krishna said, it is not that only I accept, there are other great sages, divine sages, who accepted that you are the Supreme Lord, like Vyasadeva and Narad. And then Arjuna became very eager, and that's where we move into the 4th section, that please Krishna, you reveal more of your vibhutis. And that is where Krishna, between verses 20 and 42, Krishna showed that how is the essence of everything, the Lord Krishna's Aishwarya was displayed. So that was in chapter 10. And then we move into chapter 11. So the key learnings will be the universal form. And this is very important for us to understand, that this will help us, will strengthen our spiritual life and protect us from any untoward incidences in our spiritual life. Because there are many people who claim that they are God, and Krishna will reveal that God means what, not just in theory but in practical. So that will help to protect our spiritual life from fraudulent personalities or people in the in the spiritual. Sometimes people are there who say that they are God, but they are not. So this is the test. Krishna practically demonstrates that. And then we also see that there's a change of relationship with Krishna and Arjuna. They were actually friends, and then Arjuna accepted Krishna as his spiritual master. But here Arjuna displays that how much he becomes fearful of the Supreme Lord, seeing that universal form. And which form of Krishna is the best? Whether is it Vishwarupa or the 4-handed form or the 2-handed form, we will see towards the end of this chapter. So these are some of the key learnings of chapter 11. And the overview. So the first 4 verses is where Arjun is making a very humble request. And Krishna accepts that request, and from the verses 5 to 14, Krishna explains his universal form, and then Sanjaya begins to describe what Arjuna is seeing. So that happens between verses 5 to 14. Arjuna is astonished to see that form, and then from 15th verse to 45th verse. So in those verses, Arjuna himself explains his experience, what he is viewing, that astounding vision, and then he becomes very fearful and he begins to offer his prayers. And then in that, Krishna also gives him instructions. We will look at those instructions, what Krishna gives. And then finally, we see the 400 and the 200 forms which Krishna manifests on the request of Arjuna. So that is the last section of this chapter. So let's begin with a request. And these are the first 4 verses of this chapter. Let's read the first verse. So we'll see that in this section, Arjuna's state of mind is revealed. What is going on? What is his state of mind? The request. And then we see that how we can actually only request the Supreme Lord because he is independent. So if we approach him in a humble, submissive mood, the Lord agrees, because otherwise we don't have the capacity or capability of ordering him. Arjuna does not do that. So there is so much to learn from Arjuna. And let's look at this verse. This is the first verse of the chapter. Arjuna vacha mad anugrahaya paramam guhyam adhyatma samgitam yatyak tvaya yoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. So here Arjuna is saying, by my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. So this is what Arjuna is saying, Mad Anugrahaya. By your kind grace, by your affection, by your great mercy, I have received these instructions from you. So Arjuna has been very attentively hearing whatever Krishna has to say in the previous 10 chapters. And then he says that you have kindly given me these most confidential spiritual subjects and my illusion has gone away. So we see that how Lord has been very kind on Arjuna. He bestowed special mercy because these is very confidential subjects that Krishna is talking about. And so we understand that the form of the Supreme Lord, the two-handed form, is the most confidential knowledge. To serve him is the most confidential knowledge. We saw at the end of the 9th chapter where Krishna is saying that you become my devotee. And then, of course, in these middle 6 chapters, chapter 7 to chapter 12, Krishna does talk about what is the definition of God. God means what? And who's that God? Krishna explains that I am that Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when Arjuna received all this information, the effect on him was that all his moha, all his illusion went away. Now I like you to recall that in the first chapter, Arjuna said, I will not fight. And he kept his Gandiva bow and he was just so much bewildered. But now, today, in this particular verse, Arjuna is saying, my moha is gone. I am free from illusion. So this is what happens if we submissively, attentively hear to Bhagavad Gita. And we have a life lesson coming up that Bhagavad Gita is special mercy of the Lord. All we have to do is not be inimical, envious, be submissive, and then if we hear the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, then we receive the special mercy of the Supreme Lord. All of us go to temples and we pray, please be merciful, O Lord. Well, Bhagavad Gita is embodiment of his mercy. And by 10th chapter, Arjuna has already surrendered. We saw that in the 12th verse of the previous chapter, Arjuna glorifies that you are the Supreme Lord. And are we still waiting? Are we still wanting more? Arjuna may be convinced, I am not convinced. Well, 11th chapter is all about that. So we have the 3rd verse where where Arjuna is specifically requesting for the universal form. Evam etad yatata tvam atmanam parameshvara drishtum ichhami te rupam aishwaram purushottama. O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position, as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. So this verse gives us such important information. Arjun, uh, not just from hearing from the Supreme Lord and from his personal realization and experience. What is Arjuna's realization? That you, O Supreme Lord Krishna, the two-handed form, is the actual position, is the actual supreme form. So this is what is very important for us to understand, that Krishna, that Supreme Lord, has a two-handed form. This is the highest form of the Lord. But Arjuna is saying, I want to see the form in which you entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form. So Arjuna is becoming very eager. So Arjuna's realization is that Lord Krishna, that the Supreme Lord, is a person, because there is a lot of debate about this, whether God is a person, God is some power, God is some light, God has no personal form. Right, so there is so much of debate. There are so many religious traditions, and even within Hindus, there is so much of this quabbling, I would say. That whether God has form, God has no form. Some say yes, some say not. But if we just go by Arjuna's realization, well, Supreme Lord is the supreme person. So that is the reason. That is how a devotee gets connected to his Supreme Lord, Bhagwan and Bhakt. So here we see in the fourth verse, Manyase yadi tachakyam maya drishto meto iti prabho yogeshvara tato me tvam drishyatmanam apyayam. So here Arjuna is saying, if you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic powers, Yogeshwar, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self. So Arjun is presenting his request in a very humble, requesting way. He's making a humble request in front of the Lord, that if you think I'm able to behold your cosmic form, O Supreme Lord. So we see when we are making a request to the Lord, so there may be times when we want to present some request to the Supreme Lord. First, glorify the Supreme Lord. So he's saying, Yogeshvara. So you are the master of all mystic powers. So there is a glorification, and then Arjun presents his request. So without the power, without the blessings of the Lord, how can a finite person see infinite? So universal form is infinite, and we as living entities are finite. So how is it possible? So this is actually an impossible thing, but Lord's mercy transports or transfers an impossible, makes an impossible thing possible. So we see that Lord is independent, because Arjuna is saying, if you think I can behold, then please grant me this. So he makes an humble request. Not like in some movies, Hindi movies, there is this hero and he's going through some problem and he's in a temple and he's intensely praying. The bells are moving here and there, and it appears that somehow that hero has forced the deity to grant him whatever he desires. So that is not the way. That is not what we learn from Bhagavad Gita. What is required is simple humility. So Arjuna displays that humility. Lord is independent and of course very affectionate to his devotees, and that is how he fulfills the desires of his devotees. So humility can melt and win hearts, while pride keeps challenging others. So this is a very wonderful quality. Devotees are naturally humble. Right? We saw in the previous chapters how the learned person has equal vision. He sees that in heart of all living entities, not just human beings, but even of animals and plants and trees, there is that spirit soul, the part and parcel of the Lord, and there is this Paramatma who's residing in all the living forms. right? So naturally, the humility arises in the heart of devotees, and the pride does not occupy an inch of their heart. And second life lesson, one cannot order the Supreme Lord, but by surrender and devotion, one can invoke his mercy. And this way, the Supreme gives himself. This is the beauty. We cannot order the Supreme Lord, but if we surrender with devotion, then Lord gives himself to his devotee, to us. So why did Arjuna request to see the universal form? Well, this is the essence of this chapter. So I like to draw your attention why the request was made to see the universal form. Well, Arjuna is personally convinced, and Arjuna made those points also in the beginning of the chapter. So this is primarily to convince those who do not accept Krishna as supreme. Even after going through all these chapters and hearing from Krishna, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha Vedeshcha sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta krit veda vid eva chaham. So this Krishna says in later chapter that how he's the essence of the Vedas, he's to be known from the Vedas. And in the 10th chapter, he says that all the material worlds and the spiritual worlds, everything comes from him. Everything rests on him. But if somebody is still not convinced, then for them, now there are practicals. So we study the theory and then we see the practical. So this is a practical session, this particular chapter, to convince those who are not yet accepted Krishna as supreme. And also to benchmark for the imposters. So if somebody claims, I am God, there are people who say, I am God, you are God, I have realized, you have not realized. Arey Baba, if you are God, then display the universal form. Then we will see Krishna displayed, and Krishna did not display once, he displayed 5 times, and we will see that towards the end of this chapter. So Krishna is setting a benchmark. Actually, Arjuna is setting this benchmark because he knew that in future there will be imposters and they will claim the position of the Supreme Lord, and how it is possible. So therefore he is requesting Krishna to display this most wondrous of forms. So God will remain supreme eternally. We will remain insignificant eternally. God is Vibhu, we are Anu. He is greater than the greatest, we are smaller than the smallest. Anu. We are atomic. Let us not try to become God. Let's become godly. Let's become servant of that supreme person. So this is the kind of attitude that we need to have. So, universal form, 5th verse to 14th verse, we see that how Krishna describes his universal form in the first 4 verses, and then Sanjaya begins to describe what Arjuna sees. And what is happening? This universal form of the Lord, which is Arjuna describes as unlimited. He does not see the beginning, does not see the end. This form of the Lord is not an eternal form of the Lord. It manifests for some time and then becomes unmanifest. Why? Because this is a representation of the entire material world. So we saw previously that there is a creation, that this material, we saw in the 9th chapter, Krishna very clearly explains that this material world is created, it remains for some time, and then it is annihilated, which means it is cyclic. And then Krishna says, again it is created. So this is an eternal cycle, creation, maintenance, destruction of the material world, and then creation again. So as the material world manifests, the universal form of the Lord manifests, and then it becomes unmanifest. So this particular form is not in the spiritual world, it manifests only in the material world. And then we can see this only by Krishna's grace and Krishna's mercy. And we see that what is the unique position of Arjuna, and then how astonished Arjuna becomes. So this is the 7th verse. Ihaikastham jagat kritsnam pashyadya sachara charam mama dehe gudakesha yachanya dreshtumechhasi. O Arjuna, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving and non-moving, is here completely in one place. So Krishna declares this, that you see in this body of mind. So body of mind. So in the form of the Lord itself, Arjuna could see the whole universal form. And Krishna is saying this amazing thing: whatever desires you want, desire you have to see now, and whatever you may desire to see in future, everything you can see at this point in time. Everything moving, non-moving, everything is here at one place. So Krishna begins to describe there are hundreds of thousands of wonderful divine forms of various types, of various colors and shapes. He sees things that he has never seen before. Arjuna has not seen such things before. There are Adityas, there are Vasus, there are Rudras, there are Ashwini Kumaras, and all the other devatas were seen within that divine, within that universal form of the Lord. So as we are seeing that this universal form manifests and then becomes unmanifest. So that way it is a temporary form. It is only visible in the material world. This Virat Roop is not eternally situated in the spiritual world. So whereas Krishna and all his expansions are eternally situated in the spiritual world, but not the Virat Rupa. So devotees are not very eager to see this form. Devotees want to see those beautiful two-handed, Shyam Sundar, three bent form of the Lord. That is what devotees are very eager to see. So as universe is created and destroyed, similarly universal form is visible and becomes invisible. So it becomes manifest and unmanifest, and then one can see it only by Krishna's mercy. So we need to understand that Arjun is Krishna's Ananya Bhakt. Actually, because Arjun is an eternal associate of the Lord. We also hear about Nar Narayan Rishis. So they are also the expansions of the Supreme Lord and Arjun. So Arjun was Krishna's Ananya Bhakt. So his vision was on the highest level actually, because Arjun could already see the two-handed form. In fact, it is described that how the two-handed form is very, very rare. Even the devatas want to see this form, but it is not easily visible in the material world. And here Arjuna was spending all his time with this beautiful, wonderful form of Krishna. So Arjun's already had the highest vision, but because Arjun had requested and Krishna wanted to show this, so Arjuna's vision had to be adjusted so that he can see this celestial vision. So Arjun was given this celestial vision to see the Lord's majestic form, thousands of heads, thousands of bodies, and that really astonished Arjun. So the effulgence that was coming from this universal form, just imagine if we go out during the day. Today it was very sunny in Chennai, and if you go out on the terrace, you see that sun occupies a part of the whole sky. But imagine if thousands of suns were to rise at once in the sky, what kind of effulgence would come? And that was the effulgence which was experienced by Arjun. So this universal form is possible only to be seen by the grace of the Lord. And what is Arjuna's unique position? That everything in this universe is seen at that one place. In this universe, by our standards, this universe itself is unlimited. So how is it possible? Even if we have hundreds and thousands of heads and we were all looking, still it is not possible to see this whole universe in one place, right? But this is possible by the grace of the Lord. So these manifestations, what Arjun was seeing, is distributed all over the universe. We'll just very soon we will see the description. So they were distributed. They were the top part of the universe, the bottom part of the universe, and everywhere. And by Lord's inconceivable powers, all of them became visible to Arjun in just one place. He was sitting on the chariot. He did not have to go anywhere. He did not have to go to a theater, which is like, 360 or 180 degree theater where he could see the whole thing. No. Just sitting on the chariot, Krishna showed him this most fantastic of the forms. And they were unlimited faces, eyes, they were wonderful visions. And those forms were holding many, many weapons. They were wearing celestial garlands. So those forms, there were so many forms, and they were wearing celestial garlands. They were having those divine clothing garments, ornaments, and there was this divine scent. The fragrance was coming. So it was not just only the vision. Also, he could smell those divine scents coming from those divine forms. And this was wondrous, brilliant. It was infinite because there were faces in all directions. When he was seeing that, he could see the faces in all directions, covered the entire sky. So we need to understand this Virat Rupa of the Lord is actually the shelter, that how the whole universe takes shelter in the form of the Lord. So by seeing this, Arjun is really astonished, and we see, that is described in this particular verse. This is being described by Sanjay. Tata sa vishmaya vishto rishta roma dhananjaya pranam yashirsa devam kritanjalir abhasyata. Then, bewildered and astonished, his hair standing on end, Arjun bowed his head to offer obeisances and with folded hands began to pray to the Supreme Lord. So we see here that by seeing this most wondrous of forms, the hairs on the body of Arjun were raised on his hand. He was experiencing that astonishing he was having an astonishing experience from the same person whom he considered his friend. Later he considered his spiritual master, and now he was experiencing that astonishment from him. And Arjuna touched his head to earth for offering obeisances. He with folded hands he began to pray to the Supreme Lord. And now we will see what Arjun experienced in his own words, Arjuna's experience and his prayers. So this is from the verses 15 to 45. So we'll see Arjuna's vision, because Arjuna begins to describe, and then Arjuna asks two questions because he is terrified with that form. When Arjuna sees he is terrified, he asks questions. Who are you? What is your mission? And then Krishna reveals that he is time. He is the time factor, and then Krishna gives him instructions, and Arjuna then offers his prayers. So this is verse number 15, and here it's explained that how he is able to see the entire length and breadth of the universe. Arjun said, "My dear Lord Krishna, I see assembled in your body all the demigods and various other living entities. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva and all the sages and divine serpents." So he is able to see Brahmaji. Brahmaji is on the top of a lotus, on the top of the universe, Satyalok or the Brahmalok, and from there he is able to see all the way down. He is able to see the divine serpents like Vasuki. And then the next verse, "O Lord of the universe, O universal form, I see in your body many, many arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes, expanded everywhere without limit. I see in you no end, no middle, and no beginning." So we see that. So this is so amazing that it was not just something which was without a personal form. There were so many personal forms. So on this slide, you can see this picture which is painted by devotees. They study very carefully the scriptures and then they do the painting. So here you can see that there are unlimited forms. There are unlimited faces and eyes and mouths, and without limit. There is no beginning can be find in this such a beautiful picture. Of course, this is just a picture, but there Arjuna could see everywhere. He could not see the beginnings, he could not see the end, he could not see the middle. What is the beginning, what is the end? So that is how Krishna revealed this universal form, Vishwarupa, which was limitless, And then Arjuna further continues, "You are without origin, middle, or end. Your glory is unlimited. You have numberless arms, and the sun and moon are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, burning this entire universe by your own radiance. So here we see again that there are so many unlimited bodily, the parts of the body which are described. And then he has that supreme form. Virat Roop has the sun and the moon as your eye. So the moon is very calming, very peaceful, very pleasure giving, and that is for the devatas. And the sun, which is scorching and punishing, is for those who do not follow the instructions of the Lord. And Krishna and Arjuna is saying that the blazing fire is coming forth from the Virat Rupa's mouth, which is burning the entire universe with the radiance. So we see that how the opulences of the Lord are limitless. And then he further continues to observe, although you are one, you spread throughout the sky and the planets and all space in between. So here we see that between Earth and the heavenly planets, this universal form was everywhere. So every inch of the space which you could see, that's where the Lord, although he is one, he was spread everywhere. O great one, seeing this wondrous and terrible form, all the planetary systems are perturbed. So we see that how this is spread across the different planetary systems. So all the planetary systems from top to bottom, everything is covered. And then further, Arjuna is continuing to describe this vision. All the hosts of demigods are surrendering before you and entering into you. Some of them, very much afraid, are offering prayers with folded hands. Hosts of great sages and perfected beings, crying all peace, are praying to you by singing the Vedic hymns. So here we see that the personalities on higher planetary system are able to see this Virat Roop. So it is very interesting. Krishna gives this special vision, the celestial vision, to Arjuna, and he says, by this vision you can see this form. And others on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, whomever was given, they could see, but none of them were given this special vision. The higher living entities, because this Mahabharat war was about to happen, about to begin, and many celestials had actually gathered. They were gathered in the sky. From there they were watching. So they were devatas and there were other beings from the higher planets, and to them Lord had given this celestial vision. So it was not only Arjun, but all of them could see this wondrous form of the Virat Roop. And it is also explained, the reason is because if Arjuna only would have seen, then somebody would have later pointed out where Arjuna might have been bewildered. Arjuna might have been in some illusion. He might be having some hallucination. But it is not just Arjuna, but the beings, the higher beings on higher planets could also see, and we could see their reaction that all of them were also fearful of this form. This form inspired fear and subordination. So the host of sages, they were chanting Swasti, Swasti, let there be peace. And they were chanting the Vedic hymns to please this form of the Lord. So this is a very short summary of what Arjuna saw. He had his vision from the top to the bottom of the universe. He could see that this one person has expanded limitlessly. There is glowing effulgence of thousands of suns, and yet these are all individual personal forms. There are heads. Now in this you can see more clearly there are different personalities, although they are one person. So there are different heads. There are so many uncountable heads, eyes, ears, mouths. But these are all personal forms, and they are holding their weapons. And that is how we see that the Lord exhibited his unlimited opulence. This form was spread across the planetary systems, and it inspired fear and subordination. So a life lesson. Anything amazing, when we see in the nature, anything amazing, appreciated. Not only because it's amazing, but more importantly, even that is included in Lord's universal form. So we can, what all those wow moments when we see in the nature, we should remember all this is part of Lord's Virat Rupa or universal form. Remember the chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna begins to instruct. So So Arjuna continued to see. He saw that sons of Dhritarashtra, all of them, all the sons of Dhritarashtra, and he saw that along with them, the allies, the allied kings of the Kurus, of the Kauravas, and Bhishma, and Drona, and Karna, and all the chief soldiers on Pandava's side also. Arjun could see that all of them are rushing into the fearful mouths of this Virat Roop. And he could see that some were trapped in that mouth and their heads were being crushed by the teeth of this Virat Rupa's mouth. All of them were entering into this Virat Rupa's mouth, and they were being crushed and they were being killed. So as there are many waves of rivers, there are rivers, multiple thousands of rivers which are flowing into the ocean, like that there were rivers of these soldiers and these fighters and the great warriors. They were all entering into the mouth of this Virat Roop, like the moth which is so much attracted to the flame. So like moths, they were meeting their destruction in the blazing fire of the Virat Roop. So when Arjun saw this, he was really terrified, and he began to ask this question: who are you? What is your mission? This is what Arjuna asked, and then the Lord responds. He says this: time I am. And then he gives a prediction that how Pandavas and few others will only survive this battle, this great trial of arms, and everybody else will be destroyed. And then Krishna gives his instruction: just be my instrument. All these people have already been annihilated. Just be my instrument and follow my instructions. So here, this is this beautiful verse where Krishna is saying that Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kalosmi Lokakshayakrit Pravadho Loka Samahartumiha Pravatta Ratepi Tvam Na Bhavishyanti Sarve Ye vasthitaha prati anikeshu yodha. So here the Lord is saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, time I am, kalosmi, time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people, with the exception of you, the Pandavas. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. So here we see that there is a prediction here. Krishna explains that I am time, I am the great destroyer of this world. And this we can experience in our own lives. None of us want to grow old. None of us want to meet death. But what is that force which continues to drive us forward despite our best efforts and despite we don't do? We see from the time the child is born, it continues to grow, maintains for some time, and then begins to degrade and begins to die. What is that force which drives that? Have you ever thought about it? That force is time. And Krishna says, time I am. So here Krishna is making one more point clear to Arjun. Arjun, even if you will not fight in the form of time, I have shortened the lifespan of all these soldiers, all these warriors, great warriors, whomever they may be. I have already shortened their lifespan. So whether you fight or not fight, they will meet their destruction. And then the Lord continues, Tasmat Tamutishta Yasho Labasva Jitva Shatrun Bhungshwa Rajyam Samridham Mayaivaite Nihata Purvameva Nimitta Matram Bhavasavya Sachin. Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory, conquer your enemies, and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Sabyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. So this is a very beautiful verse where Krishna is telling that you should get up, prepare to fight and win glory, conquer your enemies, and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. So we need to understand that Arjun is a military man, and it is his duty that when the time comes and when he is required to fight, that he does not back out. So as a military man, Krishna is saying that you get up and you fight. And specifically, he's saying that attain glory, win glory. Why? Because the fighters in front of him, like Bhishma was an exceptional warrior. He could not be even defeated by the Devatas. And because I have shortened his lifespan, you just fight and you can easily defeat him. And that's how you'll become so glorious. So we see also one beautiful thing here, that Krishna has his plan, but he gives the credit to his devotees. So already Krishna has shortened their lifespans. Krishna had already killed them. But the credit goes to his devotees, like Pandavas and Arjun specifically. So why did this happen? Because Krishna had already killed these people for offending Draupadi. So the day they offended Draupadi, on that day itself it was decided that they will all die. So now Krishna is saying, just become a puppet in my hands and you attain the fame. So all these personalities who are there, they may be very valiant, but they will be just like puppets in front of you for you to attain the fame. So just become an instrument. So Krishna, this is very, very famous. Krishna is saying, Nimitt Matra, just become my instrument. Right? And Krishna also uses a very beautiful word for Arjun, Sabyasachi. So Sabyasachi means that Arjun was skillful in shooting arrows not only from the right hand, but also from the left hand. So he was skillful at shooting arrows even with his left hand. So Krishna was saying that in this battle, you can use both your hands and fire unlimited arrows. So Krishna is giving, this is an instruction for all of us. Krishna is saying, become my instrument. Right? So from this, there's a very beautiful life lesson that comes. We have our plans. Lord has his plans. If they match, then we succeed. So Lord has his plan, we have his plan. What we have to do is, we have to match our plan with Lord's plan. And if they match, then we succeed. It's as simple as that. So this is another beautiful verse. This is where Arjuna begins to offer prayers. Pitasi lokasya characharasya tvam asya pujascha gurur gariyan na tvat samosti abhayadika kutonyo lokatraya api aparatima prabhava. So what is Arjun saying? Arjun is offering his prayers to the Supreme Lord. You are the Father of this complete cosmic manifestation. You are the Father, you are the source of the moving and the non-moving, all living entities within this universe. You are its worshipable chief, the supreme spiritual master. No one is greater than you, nor can anyone be one with you. How then could there be anyone greater than you within the three worlds, O Lord of immeasurable power? So Arjun has this amazing experience of this Virat Roop, and he's saying, no one is greater than you, and nor can anyone be equal with you also. No one can be one with you. So where is the question of being greater than you? It is not possible. You are the worshipable chief. You are the supreme spiritual master. No one is greater than you. So we need to, this is very interesting that Krishna showed his universal form actually at five different occasions. Krishna showed his universal form. So when Krishna was a very small child, when he was baby Krishna, and what happened, he was on the lap of his mother, and Mother Yashoda was feeding baby Krishna. So Mother Yashoda was very blissful, the child Krishna was very blissful, and he was drinking mother's milk. And once his belly was full, baby Krishna had just finished drinking Mother Yashoda's milk. So Mother Yashoda started, caressing her baby and looking at his very beautiful, brilliantly smiling face. And that time, baby Krishna yawned. Baby yawned. Like this, he yawned. And what happened? Mother Yashoda saw the whole sky. She saw the higher planetary system. She saw the earth, the sun, the moon, fire, air, seas, islands, mountains, rivers, and all kinds of living entities moving and non-moving within the mouth of her baby Krishna. She was like astonished. So she closed her eyes at that time. So this was the first time. This is described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, 7th chapter. Just few verses it is described there. And then later in the 8th chapter, that was in the 7th chapter, in the 8th chapter, again what happened, this also I discussed in one of the previous sessions, that one day Krishna was playing with his small playmates. Still Krishna was still a young child. He was playing with his young friends, which included Balaram, his elder brother, and the sons of other Gopas. So he was playing with them. But then all his friends and Balaram came to Mother Yashoda and they complained, "Mother, mother." Balaram said, "Mother, mother, Krishna has eaten earth." So when Mother Yashoda heard this, she became very upset and she became full of anxiety because she was always concerned about Krishna's welfare. So when she heard this, immediately she went and picked up Krishna because she wanted to check whether Krishna has eaten dirt. So that is what she wanted to do. And so she began to chastise Krishna. "Dear Lala, Mere Lala," very lovingly she said, "Dear Krishna, why are you so restless that you have eaten the dirt in a solitary place? So this complaint has been lodged by your friends with whom you are playing and even your own brother Balaram," which means it is very serious. So even Balaram has complained against you. How is this? So then Krishna said, "Mother, I have never eaten dirt. All these friends of mine who are complaining against me, they are all liars. And if you think they are being truthful, you can directly look into my mouth and see." So Mother Yashoda said, "Okay, if you have not eaten earth, open your mouth wide so that I can see." And that is how, when challenged by her mother, Krishna, who was the humble son of Nand and Yashoda, just a small child, he opened his mouth. And when he opened his mouth, in that Mother Yashoda again could see that all non-moving living entities, she could see the outer space, all the directions with mountains and islands and oceans and surface of the earth and blowing wind and fire and moon and stars. She saw the planetary system. She saw water, light, air, sky, all that she could see. She could see the Vrindavan Dham and she could see herself within the mouth of her little child Krishna. So this was the second time that this Virat Rupa was shown by Lord. And then the third time, which was many years later, when this Pandavas were sent on exile and their exile period was over, and so they sent Krishna as a Shanti Doot or a peace messenger to the court of Dhritarashtra. So this was the time when Krishna came. He arrived at the court with that peace mission. So Krishna was welcomed and very nicely received in the court, and he was given a very nice throne to sit on. And then Krishna noticed that there were many celestial rishis who had also come, and so immediately Krishna said that unless we make an arrangement for these great sages to sit, how can we sit? So immediately Dhritarashtra made arrangements, and they were also given golden thrones on which all these great rishis and sages, they came and sat. So among them were Parshuram and Narad Muni and other sages. And then Krishna began to talk to Dhritarashtra, and he was explaining And among so many things that Krishna explained, he said that these Pandavas were very young children. They lost their father. And actually, you are supposed to take care of them as their father. But you have actually not only you have not done that, but actually you have put them in harm's way. You have acted in a way to actually harm them. And then he went on to further explain that if in an assembly, if virtue is attacked, then it is the responsibility of other members of the assembly to put the situation right. Otherwise, everybody is affected by that sinful reaction. So Krishna began very clearly cajoling Dhritarashtra, appealing to him that you should correct the situation. Otherwise, it will be very, very unfortunate for you. So Dhritarashtra at the end began to say, I am helpless. Because this son of mine wouldn't listen to me. So then he tells Krishna to convince his son Duryodhan. And at that same time, Parshuram was there, and Parshuram started explaining. He gave actually, he quoted one historical incident where there was one great king, and he was very war savvy. He wherever he found some king, he would challenge him, attack him, and overpower him. So there was this king, and he went around, and when he heard of non-Narayan rishis, so he said, yes, I will go and fight with them also. So he went there and he challenged, and initially the challenge was not accepted, but then Nar, between Nar and Narayan, so Nar accepted the challenge of this war. And what Nar did, he just took some blades of grass, imbued them with the power, and he discharged them on that king and his entire army. And before all those soldiers could even move, their nose and ears were cut, right? And seeing that, that king actually understood that he cannot fight with Narayan rishis. And then Parshuram said, those same Narayan rishis are present here as Arjun and Krishna. So it is not possible for any mortal to fight with them. So Parshuram was giving this advice to Duryodhan, and Narad Muni also gave advice, and Krishna also gave advice, but Duryodhan did not hear anything. He was not at all willing to hear about any reconciliation. In fact, he ordered Krishna to be arrested and tied with ropes. So when he ordered that, Lord was also present. So he ordered, let him be arrested and tied with ropes. So Krishna began to laugh heartily and displayed a portion of what we have been seeing or hearing about the universal form. Krishna displayed a part of that. So there, in that assembly of Kurus, Krishna displayed a part of this universal form. There were innumerable arms. Each one had weapons which were glowing with blinding light. In fact, the whole form of the Lord looked like an erupting volcano. And his lightning-like body had a vast variety of demigods who were coming from him. And that time also, the people who could see, they could see Brahma, they could see Lord Shiva, and they could see all these great personalities in that divine form of the Lord. And so Duryodhan, in fact, Duryodhan could not see this form. It was blinding for him. He could not see. But then there were others in that assembly who could see, like the Bhishma. Bhishma could see, Dronacharya could see, Karn could see, Vidur could see, Sanjaya could see, but Dhritarashtra could not see. And when Dhritarashtra heard of all this commotion, so then he prayed to Krishna that, oh Lord, please allow me also to see this Vishwarupa form of yours. So then Krishna momentarily gave him that eyesight through which he could see the unseeable. So, so these are the 4 places where Krishna displayed his Virat Rupa. So one was when baby Krishna, one was when he was a little grown up, still child Krishna, and then the third one was in the courtroom of Dhritarashtra as a peace messenger, as Pandav Doot. Krishna displayed part of that Virat Rupa. And finally, the fourth one is, just now we saw in the 11th chapter, before the beginning of the Mahabharat war, Krishna displayed this Virat Rupa. So this Virat Rupa Krishna, it is described in this chapter that how this form has not been seen before. And this has been the most majestic display of Lord's Virat Roop. So, so these are the four times when Krishna displayed the Virat Rupa, and then the fifth time. So the Mahabharata war got over, and after the war, Krishna was traveling to Dwarka, and on the way he met an old friend of his. So his friend was a sage called Uttanka, and so they stopped, and Krishna and Uttanka sage, they got together, they were talking to each other, and then Krishna described all this war and what all destruction had happened, and Uttanka he became very uncomfortable. He became very concerned that, Krishna, you did not stop this from happening. Of course, definitely you had the power to stop it, but why you did not do that? And this conversation became very heated conversation between Krishna and the Uttanka. And Uttanka got so angry, he said, I will curse you with my yogic powers. But then Krishna told him, this curse will not work on me. I am Supreme Lord. I am God. I am the source of all these mystic potencies and powers which you are having a small part of. So you cannot do that. So Uttanka doubted, is Krishna really that powerful and he cannot be affected by this curse? So he challenged him. Uttanka challenged him. Is it so? Are you the universal Lord himself? If so, please prove it to me. And that is the time, out of his mercy, Krishna, out of his mercy on this sage, Uttanka, Krishna manifested the same form which he had manifested for Arjuna on the battlefield. So there he had the same vision. And as we see that Arjuna also became fearful and terrified, Uttanka also became very fearful. And he began glorifying Krishna with, great praises. And then he requested Krishna to please withdraw that form. So this is how Krishna actually displayed this universal form, not once, not twice, but 5 times at different during his manifestation or presence in this material world. So at the end, we'll see the armed form of the Lord. These are the last few verses of this chapter. Arjuna vacha drashtvedam manusham rupam tava somyam janardana idanim asmi samvritaha sacheta prakritim gataha. When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardan, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind and I am restored to my original nature. So this universal form had terrified Arjuna, but now, because on Arjuna's request, Krishna withdrew that universal form and he again showed his 4-handed form on Arjuna's request, and then 2-handed form. And Krishna, what is Arjuna saying? Saumya, this is such a beautiful form, and all that agitation and all that I had become so disturbed, all that has gone away just by seeing this beautiful original form of yours. So here, what is this? We see the moon are these different moons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are these 7 different moons, or are they one single moon? So of course they are one same moon, but they are visible differently. So similarly, we understand that Lord exhibits many different kinds of forms, but he is the same person. So when we see the new moon, the crescent moon, we understand that only part of the same moon is visible. And then as the moon begins to, the waxing moon, when the moon continues to grow, we see that the 2nd day and the 3rd day and the 12th day and the 13th day, the moon becomes bigger and bigger. And on Purnima day, we see the full moon, the beautiful moon. So similarly, there are different forms of the Lord. Some forms of the Lord exhibit some qualities. Some forms of the Lord exhibit more qualities. And therefore, we need to understand that all these different forms of the Lord are one person, but they exhibit different qualities. As we have one moon, but at different days, moon displays different qualities. So one sometimes crescent, sometimes half, and sometimes full. So that's how we need to understand that how Krishna, although one person, but he can exhibit so many different forms with so many degrees of qualities that are exhibited by that form. So this right in front of you, this two-handed form of the Lord is the original form of the Lord, and this is the most rare of all these forms. So human-like two-handed form, Manusham Rupam. Please never be confused that Manusham Rupam, he is another human being. No. We are spirit soul, we are entrapped in this material body. Krishna's whole form is spiritual, is spirit, and he is that two-handed form possesses infinite powers and potencies. And this form is also most beautiful, Saumya Vapu. This very beautiful form, and it is very, very difficult to see. Sudurdasham. Darsham means seeing, Durdarsham means very difficult to see. It is not Durdarshan, it is Durdarshan. It is very difficult to see. Sudurdarshan means very, very difficult to see. It's a very rare form. The other forms of the Lord are not so rare. They are visible to many Devatas and Brahmaji, but two-handed form is rare. The Lord appears just once in a day of Brahma. So we will look at this last verse of this chapter. So like in the previous session, in the 10th session, we saw the Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, the 4 verses 8, 9, 10 and 11, which is the essence of the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. Here we have one verse, which is the essence of entire Bhagavad Gita. Hari Bol. Krishna is making our life easier and easier and easier. So even if we just understand this one verse, we understand whole of Bhagavad Gita. We understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Mat karma krin mat paramo mad bhakta sangha varjitaha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yaha samam eti pandava. My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living entity, he certainly comes to me. So what is Krishna saying? My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, Shuddha Bhakti, Tuya Bhakti. So one who engages in my pure devotional service, and pure devotional service means it should not be contaminated by any fruitive activities, which means I do not contaminate it with my desires for sense enjoyment or mental speculation. Krishna is saying, he who works for me, like Arjun, he is a great, a Kshatriya, very powerful warrior, a king, but he has engaged himself in the service of the Lord. So those who work for me, who make me the supreme goal of his life. So if today we decide, yes, Krishna and Krishna's service is the goal of my life, I pray and I desire that Lord bless me and guide me in future, that how can I just dedicate my life in your service. So who makes me the supreme goal of his life, who's friendly to every living being, Krishna says, it is certain that such a person comes to me. So with this, we end the 11th chapter. I hope all of you had a wonderful, wonderful realization and experience of Krishna's Virat Roop, and how this is the litmus test for anyone who says, I am God. He must pass this test, right? So now all of you are empowered with this knowledge, and so we must not get fooled when somebody says, when any ordinary person says that I am God. So just like one relishes the company of a dear friend more than his exhibition of opulence, similarly, Lord's personal dealings are way sweeter than his Aishwarya. So although Lord is so powerful, he showed his Virat Rupa, but Arjun wanted to see and connect with the beautiful two-handed form of the Lord. So just as when we have a very, very close and dear friend, his association is more desired than his opulences, because Lord's personal dealings are very, very sweet. So with that, we come to the end of this chapter. Let's have a quick review. So we saw in the beginning of this chapter that Arjuna wanted to request that how you are the Supreme Lord, I accept completely this form. Two-handed form is the highest, is the rarest, is the greatest. But I would like to know how you pervade this entire material universe. So we saw that Arjuna's state of mind was there. His illusion was over. He accepted Krishna as Supreme, completely satisfied, and he requested to see the universal form. Why? Because not just that he wanted to see, but he wanted to convince so many ordinary people who have not accepted Krishna as Supreme, and to benchmark the imposters. So if somebody says that I am God, show your universal form, show the universal form. And then we saw that how Krishna is independent Lord and he can be approached only through humility and devotion. And then Krishna showed his universal form, he described it, and then later Sanjay described. So this universal form is manifest and unmanifest, remains within the material world. It is a representation of the material world in the form of the Lord. It can be seen only by Krishna's mercy, Arjuna's unique position, because right there on the chariot, Arjuna could see the entire universe from top to bottom, the entire width and breadth of the universe. Everything was made visible to Arjun by Lord's great potency, and then that created astonishment in Arjun. And then what did Arjun experience? He experienced amazement. As we saw, top to bottom vision, glowing effulgence as if thousands of suns have arisen at once. And he could see that they were personal forms, they were faces, they were personalities which were scattered all over the space between the earth and the heavenly planets. Everything was covered by them, and it showed unlimited opulence of the Lord. It was spread across the planetary system, and it is inspired fear and submission. So we saw that how the sages and the devatas, they were all offering their respects and prayers, and they were chanting swasti, swasti, peace, peace. They were chanting that. So they were so fearful, and they were offering their Vedic prayers to the Lord. And we saw that how Krishna gave the instruction, because Arjuna was so bewildered. He could see that all these the sons of Dhritarashtra and Bhishma and Drona and Karna and everybody was entering into the mouth of this Virat Rupa, their heads being crushed. So Arjuna asked, who are you? What is your mission? And Krishna says, I am time. I am the great destroyer. And there Krishna predicted that how, except for the Pandavas and for few others, everybody else will be destroyed in this great war. And then Krishna instructs Arjuna, become my instrument, nimitt matra, right? Just become my instrument. And then Arjuna begins to offer his wonderful prayers. And finally, Arjuna requested that, Lord, you please withdraw this Virat Rupa and you exhibit your four-handed form. And then Krishna exhibited that Vaikuntha form and then the two-handed form. And towards the end of this chapter, the 55th verse, we saw the one verse which represents the essence of entire Bhagavad Gita. So with that, today's question, if someone claims to be God, what will be your reaction? I would like to know your reaction. Please write down in the comment box down in this video comment box. Please mention your reaction. If somebody claims to be God, what will you say? What will you do? So before we wind up the next session, the chapter 12, what does Krishna guarantee? What does Krishna guarantee? How can I serve Krishna without changing much in my lifestyle? So that should interest most of us. Very important next session. And qualities which Krishna likes. So the end of the 12th chapter, there are many qualities which Krishna says that those qualities, a person exhibiting those qualities is very dear to me. So it will be very interesting to know those qualities which Krishna really likes. And if you have any questions or comments about this session, please leave your comments and questions in the comment box and we will get back to you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Nidai Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.